we're going to keep the energy levels high, and we're going to hear from North Lanarkshire Champions Board, known to most as TNT, courtesy of Beth and Logan and Laura Campbell. If you guys can join me on screen now. Hello, Laura and Beth. It's a real pleasure to have you here with us today. I'm just going to hand over to you now.
Thanks very much, Mary. So, as Mary mentioned, my name's Laura Campbell. I'm joined with Beth and Logan, and we are just going to do a wee presentation on our transport progress. Beth, you're up.
So, our Champions Board kind of journey started quite a while back. We initially had a funding bid rejected by Your Voice, which was an independent advocacy provider in North Lanarkshire. Then we were successful a second time. And the reason we were successful the second time was because we had involved the voice of lived experience far more in the bid. And that was something that was kind of commended on completion of the successful funding bid. So in 2018, we kind of set up, we had TNT established kind of for about a year and a bit. Before then, we only had a kind of small core group of 4 members initially. That moved up to 6 in 2018. And we went through quite a period of transition as we transitioned from our previous advocacy provider into our new advocacy provider at Who Cares Scotland. And the support from the Trust at that point was really crucial and a pivotal moment in that transition. And the support we got was phenomenal. I then started as a participation assistant in 2018. And I suppose I've nurtured the baby that was TNT. And we're called TNT and it stands for Today Not Tomorrow. And we want to see change today and not tomorrow, and that's why it's called that. But also because it kind of represents explosives, so we want to go into things with a bit of a bang, which I think we do quite often in the many meetings that we attend. And also for the logo that we have as well, it's about the 2 T's meeting to create a bridge. And that's to bridge the gap between kind of corporate parents and care experience people being able to share their views. So we didn't have any volunteers at that point in time, and we were really struggling to gain support and recognition from kind of corporate parents. So it was a bit of a journey, but we were still doing a lot of work in the background. So we had done like a consultation with the care community in North Lanarkshire. We put forward together like an education proposal. And we liaised quite a lot with the Trust. So kind of 2018 is when things started to kind of take off a bit as well.
So I joined the group in 2019, and that was the year that we launched our second Young Persons Participation Group. So TNT is for our 14 to 26-ish young people, and we launched Crafty Foxes, which is our 8 to 12-year-olds, and it's an arts and crafts based group. Crafty Foxes didn't start with the sole focus of looking at their care journey. It was just a young person's group that they were there to bond. They went through that process themselves, particularly when it came to doing activities for Care Day, and that's when they started really exploring their care experience and becoming interested in getting their voices and their opinions heard. And the hope is that as our mini champs, they will eventually progress to become part of TNT. We moved from 6 young people to 11. We still didn't have any volunteers at the moment in time, and there was no Champions Board meetings. So as I mentioned, I started in 2019, and I spent the first 6 months in post just trying to get the Champs Board structure in place, with quite a lot of help for the Trust and particularly Bobby. And we looked at how can we actually get things up and running. So there was still a lot of work taking place.
So in 2020, we had both groups of TNT and Crafty Foxes. We had our membership expanded to 13 young people, and we also had 5 volunteers as well. And in 2020, we had like a development day in kind of early 2020, pre-pandemic, and we came up with a 2-year development plan. And the key priorities that were identified was kind of education and health, and specifically mental health kind of became a big issue. Some of the other stuff that we kind of covered was what we were finding was that corporate parents would often come to TNT to consult or to ask questions or to look at kind of how they could enhance their services, but actually they weren't coming back and telling us how the information that we had selfishly shared with them was then being fed into that wider service improvement. So we decided that we wanted to create a form And that was, there was 2 stipulations on the form. The first one was you provide the food, so you provide the dessert. And the second kind of point on the form was kind of making sure that that feedback loop was maintained, so that people were coming back to us and saying, well, this is how we took your views or your opinions or your perspective forward, and this is what we've subsequently done with that information. And I think that was really, really important to create that feedback loop, because it was something that had been missing. And it was also something that we knew from the wider network as well that people were struggling with too. So that's something that was really important. We also seen the new kind of leader of the opposition party in North Lanarkshire kind of become more involved with the Champions Board, become more curious about the Champions Board, and he came to one of our meetings and he was like, what can I do for you? And we were like, we need a Champions Board meeting, like we've been set up for years now and we've not had a meeting. He was like, leave it with me. And he went back and he came back and he was okay, we'll have our first Champions Board meeting. So we had our first Champions Board meeting in person, and it was hosted at a local community fire station, and it was actually on the day that the pandemic was announced. Laura was like, nobody is leaving this room until we get commitments on paper. So that was something that we really kind of celebrated. So that was one positive that came kind of pre-pandemic or kind of actually bang on the nose of pandemic. We also, throughout the course of 2020, had 2 other online Champions Board meetings, so that was a cycle of Champions Board meetings starting to set up now, and make sure that it was a regular occurrence and it was in people's diaries. And we've gained quite a lot, and Laura's going to kind of tell you some of the stuff that we've gained from that.
Thanks, Beth. So 2021, obviously we were still kind of in the pandemic with some restrictions, but we managed to set up a 3rd participation group. So you might have picked up that Crafty Foxes was 8 to 12 and that TNT was 14 plus. So there was an age gap in the middle that we weren't quite hitting. So we established our middle group. The name has changed because they were called Magic in the Middle, and then the current group have decided that it would be the Mad Middles. So the Mad Middles is for our 12 to 16. They've only been running for about 2 months, so that they're still quite new to the Champs Board process. It's very young person led, they set the agenda, and the hope is that once we've established those relationships and that they're comfortable, we can then start to implement some of the Champs Board processes and get their voices and opinions heard as well. So between the 3 groups, we've now got 22 young people involved. And we've got 4 volunteers. We did lose one during the pandemic just to personal reasons due to change our job and stuff. As Beth mentioned, we now have regular Champions Board meetings, so they happen on a regular basis, and work takes place in between that as well. Now that I have that mailing list, they don't get peace from me. I quite like to annoy people until I get what I want. And there has been a lot of progress. So I'm just going to talk through some of the stuff that the group have been working on and some of our key achievements. So Beth mentioned paperwork. She mentioned the visitor forum. That was one of the first things implemented because the feedback loop is so important. We don't want to be a tick box exercise. We want people to take the information that we're giving them and we want them to do something with it. And we stated right at the beginning, you know, even if you're not doing anything with it, just let us know. Like, it's fine. Like, we're not expecting the world to change overnight, but let us know what you're doing with the information that we're giving you. We also came up with our terms of reference, which was quite useful when we set up the first Champs Board meeting, just to ensure that all the corporate parents there knew what they were doing. And again, Bobby had helped plan a development session just to cover with them what their roles and responsibilities were. We came up with a code of conduct for the group, just loads of things that we put in place to ensure that things were running smoothly. We worked with the local authority to raise awareness about the council tax exemption for our care leavers, because quite a lot of our care experienced community didn't realise that was something they were entitled to. So one of our young people went to corporate comms and we made a video to raise a profile of that. Education was one of the key themes that we picked in our 2-year development plan. And part of that was we went to the head of education and said, can we visit every first year class in every high school in North Lanarkshire and do a presentation? And they said, yeah, go for it. So we've started doing that. And the presentation is about care experience in general and just raising the profile of what that means, but also looking at the impact of how being in care can impact a young person's education and how their day-to-day experience of school is impacted. So the young people either attend face-to-face to do a wee chat about what it was like for them, or if they can't be there in person, they're there virtually in terms of a video or just some comments that they've put together. we've started doing that, and so far it's gone really well. And if I had been honest, I think some of the staff take away as much as what the pupils do. We've also been engaging with virtual skills just in terms of looking at language and the language that is used in school when we're talking about young people that are care experienced. We have engaged with Police Scotland, so we made a video in terms of what their corporate parent duties were. That was pre-COVID, and we now have been approached by the police, and the fact that the police have approached us and it's not been the other way about just to me signifies the difference in the impact that the group's having. So they have approached us to see if we can re-engage sorry, in terms of how the police communicate with young people. And we also looked, we did a session on the police's use of body cams. Beth, can you pick up for a wee minute?
Yeah. We also kind of raised at a Champions Board meeting about finances and, more importantly, kind of students and how they were in receipt of a bursary, but then when it came to the summertime, they had no money, like they had no finances and stuff like that. And that was like a really pivotal moment for me actually within the Champions Board kind of journey, because the Chief Executive of the Council kind of held his hands up and was like, right, okay, I hear you, I hear what you're saying, let's have a meeting about it. So he took it off table and he came back and he met with TNT and he listened to us and he heard what we had to say, and he was like, right, okay, let's get the financial inclusion team out, we'll do like kind of financial assessments to make sure you're getting everything that you're entitled to, and to really just kind of make sure that that was action really, and that for me was something that I was like, right, okay, they're kind of sitting up and they're listening and they're taking charge now as well.
Yep, and the Chief Executive has also asked that there's a joint review carried out just in terms of care experienced young people's finances. So that shouldn't just impact the group, that should impact every care experienced young person in North Lanarkshire, and that's something that we're really keen to progress, and we'll be picking up again in December. Also been engaging with local authority in terms of contextual safeguarding. So North Lanarkshire is one of the pilot areas that is looking to embed this into everyday practice. And contextual safeguarding is round about ensuring that young people are safe in every area of their life. So while child protection focuses on keeping them safe in the house, contextual safeguarding looks at keeping them safe everywhere else in their community. And there's a big part of that looking at language, which is also a key theme that the group have been working on. So we're really keen to be involved in that, and we'll be supporting young people to get their voices across and their opinions on that and what they think should be embedded into day-to-day practice. We have also been looking at the Youth Justice Review, so Beth is at the forefront of that, and again that is about getting young people's views and opinions of what it's like to be part of the youth justice system, what could be better. So some of the initial thoughts processes are about ensuring that it's the same panel members, that young people are getting access to advocates if they're going to a hearing, that they're getting to visit the hearing centre beforehand. And we'll be linking the youth justice questions and the contextual safeguarding questions, and Beth and I will be going out to engage with young people across North Lanarkshire. Language we've mentioned a few times, so it's quite a big area of focus at the moment in time. So our social media contacts will come up later in the presentation. If you follow us on social media, you'll see recently we made a language bin, and we started putting language that we feel should be binned into it. So if anybody's got anything they'd like to add to it, feel free to give us a wee follow and send us a wee message, and we can add your comments in. And as Beth mentioned, so education and health, particularly mental health, were key focuses. So in terms of mental health, we had a very emotive sessions looking at what works well within the mental health support system and what doesn't work well. And that information was shared with Who Cares Scotland in terms of their annual participation programme, which they feed into the Scottish Government. And it was also shared with our local authority. And again, the fact that they have come back and said, we do not want these young people given these thoughts and these feelings and these opinions and nothing happening with it. So they came back and said, can we progress this? Can we co-produce a support service for young people 16 plus? So again, the fact that we're given this information and it's actually going somewhere and its impact and change has just been really, really great. And I do apologise because I keep forgetting that I'm using my phone for the clicker and not my laptop. That's not letting me move. See, we've done 2 take runs and this didn't happen. There we go. So I mentioned the council tax exemption video. That can be found on YouTube. I think Mary's going to stick the link in the chat, so feel free to go and have a wee look at that.